Hello, my name is Amanda Carroll, and my topic is witness testimony in courts. Witness testimony can be unreliable, especially in the case of Frank Lee Smith. He was convicted and sentenced to death in 1987 for the murder and rape of an 8-year-old girl in Florida. He was convicted due to witness testimony evidence provided by 3 eyewitness accounts who had only seen glances of the killer. There was no evidence that pointed to Mr. Smith other than these accusations provided by these witnesses. Defense investigators later discovered that a serial rapist murderer lived in the same area. When the eyewitnesses were then shown a picture of this other suspect, they then stated that this was definitely who they had seen, not Mr. Smith. Tragically, Mr. Smith had already died in prison due to poor health. Smith was posthumously exonerated by the use of DNA testing. The tests also confirmed the guilt of the other suspect. This case of misidentification led an innocent man dying in prison, even though he was not guilty. Every year, around 75,000 eyewitness testimonies are used in criminal investigations. They provide context and information about the case that forensic technology is unable to give. However, people's memories are often unreliable, and they can be altered by outside sources. Evidence has shown that memory is extremely selective. Selective memory produces inaccurate recall of events, decreasing the legitimacy of witness testimony. Witness testimony can lead to an unfair trial that is harmful to the accused because defendants are condemned by an unreliable source. Relying solely on witness testimony leaves risks for mistakes and wrongful convictions. An essential part of determining if witnesses should testify in court is reliability. If a witness cannot remember the crime or perpetrator accurately, the risk of condemning the wrong person outweighs the evidence being presented. Elizabeth Loftus, a professor at University of California of Psychology and Social Behavior, and Jeffrey Loftus, who is a professor at University of Washington in psychology, have research on the non-permanent memory. They concluded that it should influence all people who rely on obtaining a truthful version of an event of someone who has experienced that event in the past. Clinical psychologists, counselors, and psychiatrists evaluating a person's condition should take this non-permanent memory theory into account. The non-permanent memory theory is the theory that most memories of the past are incorrect in some way. The 2 professors found that the results of the tests that they had run on people who had received misleading information do not remember the event correctly. In their report, it was stated that over 80% of subjects who had received misleading information responded incorrectly on forced recognition tests. They indicated that they had seen the slide corresponding to what they had been told rather than what they had actually seen. Whether it's small differences or the complete creation of memories the witness had never reported having, it shows that people's memories are subject to suggestion. An example of leading witnesses can be seen in the study by Elizabeth Loftus. She discovered that using different verbs while questioning a witness would change the outcome of the answer. I have a video demonstrating that.
To see how changing that verb that's used in the question can actually mean that their memory is distorted. Now, Loftus and Palmer also asked the same participants a week later if they'd seen any broken glass in the film clip. Now, in fact, there wasn't any broken glass in the film clip, and the control group, who weren't asked about the speed of the cars, 12% of those correctly recalled that. 14% of the participants who were asked the verb hit recalled that, but 32% of the participants who used the verb smashed falsely recalled that there was broken glass within the film. Now, Loftus argues that this is because we're reconstructing our memory, so we're changing them to incorporate the new information that we're finding out afterwards. And we incorporate our schemas. So, for example, you would expect broken glass if you've said that the car was smashed into each other and they were travelling at a high speed. It would be a logical expectation that there would have been glass at the scene. You cannot tell which parts of the memory are the original, though, or which parts are changed afterwards, because there's no way of going back to the original memory. So, for example, you don't know if they recalled there being glass originally before they were asked that their cars were smashed.
So in this video, it showed that people were they were changing the verbs that they explained during the experiment. And so instead of hearing hit, they heard smashed. And once they did hear the change in verb, they had then associated the speed that the cars were going at a faster rate. This shows the malleability of the memory that each person has when they're shown different ways to look through it. The unreliability of a witness can also be seen through the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. This is a graph of memory retention that was created by Hermann Ebbinghaus. He was a German psychologist who initiated the experimental study of memory. He was also the first person to describe this learning curve. The learning curve graph shows the progressive memory forgetting. The graph shows that the later the information is relayed, the less accurate it is. He found that after 20 minutes, the retention of a memory decreases by 42%. By using the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, it can be seen that memory is extremely unreliable, even more if a witness is questioned significantly after an event has occurred, because the more time that we wait before asking these questions, the less that they're going to recall. Another way that memory can be unreliable is through the power of suggestion. This can be seen through situations such as when an investigator shows a witness, shows emphasis on a certain person, leading the witness to believe that the person is more likely to be guilty because they think that the officer already knows who the suspect, who the actual guilty person is, so they're more likely to go with who the officer leads them to believe it is. One way to solve this would be to have an unbiased person who is unaware of the case be able to question the witnesses. This provides a less tainted memory than having somebody who's very involved in the case wanting to question the witnesses. The evidence shown proves that the eyewitness account should only be used in court if it is from the original police report. The unreliability of a witness has proven to subject people to wrongful convictions and even lead to an innocent person being condemned to death. This, as well as the malleability of memory, which is too open to outside influences to be admissible in a court. There is too much corruption that occurs within the memory for it to be counted as valid evidence. The reason that a witness's first statement would be used is due to its purity and accuracy. It is the most unaffected part of the memory. Dr. John Wixt is a professor at UC San Diego. He has researched recognition memory, memory consolidation, and forgetting. He contends that memory is not only reliable if it is used during proper procedures. Dr. John Wixt states that eyewitness could just as effective as other ways of proving innocence or guilt, and that the only reason that eyewitness testimony is seen as not effective is because it's not being used correctly. Dr. Wixt believes that the first and most important of all is because the test itself contaminates the memory. Only in the initial memory test provides uncontaminated results. And that all tests performed later to test the witness's memory, including the one that occurs in court in front of the jury, constitute as contamination of evidence. This is because it's a recreation of the memory. Since the first telling is uncorrupted as future retellings will be, the future retelling should not be used as evidence because of the distorting impacts that it has on the memory. In conclusion, eyewitness testimony should not be allowed to be used in court if it is not the original testimony gotten by the police. Thank you.